Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Shravanam Diaries Podcast.
Bhagavad Gita as it is, the book by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute. And today is Govardhana Puja. Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Okay. Text number 4. Bhumi rapo nalo vayu kammano buddhir evacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritir ashtadha. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Purport. The science of God analyzes the constitutional position of God and his diverse energies. Material nature is called Prakriti, or the energy of the Lord, in his different Purusha incarnations, expansions, as described in the Shatvata Tantra. Vishnostu trini rupani Purushakyan yatho vidu ekam tu mahata srashtri dvitiyam tvanda samsthitam tritiyam sarvabhutastham tani gyatva vimuchyate. Quote, for material creation, Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes 3 Vishnus. The first one, Mahavishnu, creates the total material energy, known as the Mahatattva. The second, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. The third, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, is diffused as the all-pervading Supersoul in all the universes and is known as Paramatma. He is present even within the atoms. Anyone who knows these 3 Vishnus can be liberated from material entanglement. Can be liberated from material entanglement. Unquote. This material world is a temporary manifestation of one of the energies of the Lord. All the activities of the material world are directed by these 3 Vishnu expansions of Lord Krishna. These Purushas are called incarnations. Generally, one who does not know the science of God, Krishna, assumes that this material world is for the enjoyment of the living entities and that the living entities are the Purushas, the causes, controllers, and enjoyers of the material energy. According to Bhagavad Gita, this atheistic conclusion is false. In the verse under the discussion, it is stated that Krishna is the original cause of the material manifestation. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this. The ingredients of the material manifestation are separated energies of the Lord. Even Brahmajyoti, which is the ultimate goal of the impersonalists, is a spiritual energy manifested in the spiritual sky. There are no spiritual diversities in the Brahmajyoti, as there are in the Vaikuntha Lokas. And the impersonalist accepts this Brahmajyoti as the ultimate eternal goal. The Paramatma manifestation is also a temporary, all-pervasive aspect of the Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. The Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. Therefore, the factual absolute truth is the personality, supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna. He is the complete energetic person, and he possesses different separated and internal energies. In the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. Out of these, the first 5 manifestations, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, are called the 5 gigantic creations or the gross creations, within which the 5 sense objects are included. Okay, so the first 5 include the 5 sense objects. Makes sense. What are the 5 sense objects? Something to hear, to breathe, to see, to taste, and to touch. They are the manifestations of physical sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Sorry. Okay. We were correct. Okay. Material science comprises these 10 items and nothing more. I remember the first time I read this, I was like, whoa. But the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the materialists. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. The false ego, I am, and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Really? Look at that. What are the 10 sense organs? There are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses. We will get that later on. But all of them are included in false ego. That's why, when I was studying at Bhaktivedanta Theological Seminaries with Bhaktivedanta Purna Maharaj, I remember we were studying, what was that? What is it called? Brahma Samhita. We're studying Brahma Samhita, and over there I remember this so clearly, and it just really blew my mind at that time when I heard it. And still, it was described that the material creation is basically false ego, that even in impersonal Brahma Jyoti there is that Karana Sharir, which is that last bit of snare of false ego. And it was described that basically the material creation is false ego plus false ego, that's intelligence, intelligence plus more false ego, that's mind, and then so earth is the most concentrated form of false ego. Yeah, and then as soon as you let exclude false ego, meaning as soon as false ego turns into a real ego, meaning I am not the Lord of all I survey, I am not the controller and enjoyer, I am the servant. Jivira Swarupahaya, Krishnera Nitya Das. As soon as you do that, the entire material concept just falls apart because the false ego is not there. So here it says that the 10 sense organs are included in false ego. Wow. That's where they are. What was that verse? Sevam mukhe jihvadal swayam eva spuratyada. Atach Shri Krishna namadi na bhavet grahyam indriyaih Sevan mukhe hijih vadal svayam eva spuratyada. Wow, that's why our process, like in order to purify the senses, to serve the Lord with transcendental senses, we start with hearing and chanting. Wow, that's like the first manifestation, that if you're a servant, you will hear about Krishna and you will talk about Krishna, and then everything else follows. Look at that. Okay, continuing. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahatattva. Therefore, from the 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya atheistic philosophy. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energies and are separated from him. But atheistic Sankhya philosophers with a poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energy of Krishna, as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Text 5. Apareyamitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayadam dharyate jagat. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another, superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material, inferior nature. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Lord, of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. Yeah, see, just now we've read that the scientists just focus on the gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Even if you talk about psychologists and psychiatrists, basically, when you talk about psychiatry, they study the mind, but it always goes into this, there will be medications involved, and they will always be it won't be as scientific, because you can't really talk about these subtle elements if Krishna is not involved, without the Lord. Moreover, I would say even moreover, if you don't involve, there's Paravidya and Aparavidya. Now, in Vedic sciences like Ayurveda and astrology, they deal directly with these subtle elements. They speak about the mind, details, they categorize different kinds of minds. Now, Ayurveda, it talks about the channels, the mental channel, as one of the, so it's very deep in that sense. But as we know, Vedic astrology and Ayurveda are not mainstream. They're not discussed by material scientists, and most of them, they're very much skeptical regarding these sciences. So that's why they don't know how they work. They can speculate, and mostly it always boils down to taking some pills or just talking about something and trying to, by method of, trying to see some patterns and this and that. But you can see some patterns, or you can read the manual, It's almost like they're trying to assemble the IKEA furniture without the paper, there are these kind of Prabhus who are I don't need the manual, I can just assemble it. And you're trying, but sometimes the elements of this material world are so complex that we don't even know how they work. And even if we do know how they work in a much deeper sense. I always think that Krishna has given us the science of even these Vedic sciences, like Jyotish, say, because we're speaking about it, Jyotish and Ayurveda. We've been given a lot, it's deep. That those who really know it is deep, but still we don't know everything because we're small. Krishna has given us something, just like in Bhagavatam. There's a story of Yagyavalkya, who has worshipped Surya Narayan, and he received the Veda, which was not known before to the human race. There's many things we don't know, even if we are Vedic people and we study Vedic literatures. There are many things we still don't know because we just don't have the capacity to understand everything. It's I remember also Bhakti Purnamaj would say that you're 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair, and material nature is 1/4 of the creation. It's not an equal match. Yeah, okay. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. This is such a strong... If only we understood how, Chaitanya Charitamrita, in one of the purports, it says that the spirit soul is more brilliant than millions of suns. If only we knew that, you're not some cripple in this material body. It just limits you. It won't even act unless you move it. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful, as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.87.30 as follows. Aparimita dhruvastanumbrito yadi sarvagatas tarhina shasyate tiniyamo dhruva nitaratha ajani chayanmayam tad avimuchya niyantri bhavet samamanu janatam yad amatam matadushtaya. Maybe there was a different meter for that. Okay. Worried about the melody. Okay. Quote, O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. Unquote. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, is the only controller and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme. But they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy, matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But then, the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy. But when? So when he becomes free from the illusory energy, from the influence, he attains the stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, quote, I am matter, and material acquisitions are mine. I am matter and material acquisitions are mine, unquote. Okay, and some people's false ego says that I'm a piece of garbage and I don't have anything. Yeah, there are different ways false ego can. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Haribol! Okay, wishing everyone and everybody happy Govardhana Puja and Jai Jai. Jai Giri Govardhan. Thank you so much for tuning in today. The book links, previous episodes timeline, and biography of the author can be found on shravanamdiaries.com. The link is in the description, and we shall see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare